It is 4 o'clock. I will call the meeting to order. Please stand to sing O Canada. Please be seated. We'll now have the roll call.
Mayor Sue Patterson.
Present.
Deb,
Sounds good too.
might have to change it up. Deputy Mayor Warren Decker,
Present.
Councillor Harold Fleet,
Present.
Councillor Dave Hawking,
Present.
Councillor Carol Hudson,
Present.
Councillor Brandon Cable does not appear to have joined us yet virtually. Councillor Susan Sackle.
Present. Thank you, Vicki. We'll begin with the land acknowledgement. As we work toward reconciliation with Indigenous people, we begin our meeting today by respectfully acknowledging that we are situated on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Nation, the people of Three Fires known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations, and further give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. So welcome to our regular council meeting for Monday, June the 16th, 2025. Good afternoon, council, staff, guests, the viewing public, and the media. Council, does anyone have a disclosure of pecuniary interest or a conflict of interest? Seeing none, if one should arise during the meeting, you may declare it then. We do not have any agenda additions or deletions, but this afternoon we do have two delegations. And the first one I would like to share that each year the Minister of Seniors and Accessibility invites municipalities to submit a nomination for Senior of the Year award. This award recognizes an outstanding senior who, after age 65, enriches the social, cultural, or civic life of the community. I would like to invite Teresa Bester to come up to the podium. Welcome, Teresa. It is my pleasure and an honor to recognize Teresa Bester as Hanover's Senior of the Year, who was nominated by a public member. Teresa is the kind of volunteer every community hopes for. Wherever she lends her time and talents, she gives her all, going above and beyond with dedication, compassion, and a strong sense of community. She has been an active member of the Hanover Horticultural Society for 10 years, serving on the board of directors and assisting faithfully at the annual plant sale. She has also delivered Meals on Wheels for more than a decade, ensuring that care and connection are brought right to people's doors. Teresa has been involved with Light on Main for over 14 years, helping to feed over 100 people every week. As assistant captain in the dining room, she plays a key role in creating a welcoming and wholesome space for all who attend. Through the Catholic Women's League, Teresa has served as past president and has organized countless funeral luncheons. She also packs shoe boxes for children in developing countries, fills boxes with clothing and essentials for those in need, and visits shut-ins in hospitals and long-term care homes, offering comfort where it's needed most. In addition, Teresa has made her mark in local sports through the Hanover Lawn Bowling Club. She has served as president, sat on the board for 7 years, chaired provincial tournaments, and acted as draw master for every Hanover tournament. She has even represented Ontario multiple times at the Canadian finals, a remarkable achievement. Teresa, your selfless contributions, leadership, and energy have made a lasting impact on Hanover. Congratulations, and thank you for all you do. So Teresa, you're welcome to say a few words, and then we'd like to take a photo.
Your Worship, Town Councillor, and guests, I'm extremely honored to have been selected to receive the Senior of the Year award. There are so many other worthy people who dedicate their time and energy to volunteering in Hanover, and I would be amiss not to acknowledge them. Could I have a round of applause for all of the volunteers? I have always enjoyed volunteering. It gives me a great deal of satisfaction in my life. I've met so many wonderful people over the years and encouraged everyone to consider volunteering, even if it's just for a little while. My life is just a little bit better and brighter because of it. I would like to thank Linda and Rec Allen for nominating me. And lastly, I need to thank my husband, Ken, who has been my biggest supporter. He has always encouraged me to follow my heart and never complains when I'm not at home. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So if you would just come up here, I do want to say, while I have the microphone, this is a certificate signed by the Honorable Raymond Cho, who is Minister for Seniors and Accessibility, and Elizabeth Dumont, who is the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, and myself as Head of Council, for this award as in recognition of outstanding contributions after age 65 that strengthen and protect our community. So we'll just come around and take a photo. Okay, so our second delegation this afternoon is our 2025 Asset Management Plan, and Sude Jain from Watson and Associates Economists. Thanks for that help there. You know, you get something in your mind and you just can't say it. Sorry, Sude. We've got it. We're going to do the Asset Management Plan. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good evening, members of council, and through you, your worship. It's my pleasure today to be presenting you with the town's 2025 asset management plan. And let me share my screen here. Is the presentation coming through okay?
No, it is not.
Oh, okay. Okay, that should do it. Let me know if you're able to see the presentation, please.
Yes, we can.
Hey, perfect. So this presentation and the accompanying report is the culmination of all the work that the town has completed over the past 9 or so months and brings the town into full compliance with the 2025 requirements of Ontario Regulation 58817. Additionally, the plan that's in front of you today goes beyond just the requirements of OREC 58817 to also identify the level of sustainable funding that should be provided to assets on an annual basis to progress towards financial sustainability, as well as the impacts of achieving that funding level on both the town's financial position and on property owners. So I'll detail some of that as we move along here. But first, starting with asset valuation. So presented in this slide is a summary of all the various different assets that the town owns and manages and utilizes to support the provision of the various municipal services that it provides to the public. As illustrated on the donut chart on the left-hand side of this slide, the current replacement cost of the town's infrastructure assets sits at over $410 million. And provided in the table on the right-hand side are brief summaries of the assets that are in scope for this asset management plan. So as you will notice, the largest share of replacement costs is attributed to water and wastewater infrastructure assets, which combined sit at close to $170 million, or over 40% of the overall share. The town's 17 tax-funded facilities comprise the next largest share, at close to $443 million, or 35%, followed by transportation assets comprising approximately 45 or so kilometers of roads and a number of road-related assets at close to 58 million, or 14%. And then lastly, combined stormwater and fleet and equipment assets or represent the remaining 10 or so percent. Now, relating the overall replacement cost of assets to the assessment base of the town, we see that the typical single-family detached house in the town indirectly owns approximately $104,000 of municipal infrastructure, which represents the infrastructure burden that is placed on the typical residential property owner. And what that's meant to highlight is that every property owner in the town is therefore responsible for funding the annual consumption associated with their share of the town's infrastructure assets, which should then be reflected in the tax and water and wastewater rates that are levied annually on each property. So moving on, presented in this slide are the town's approaches to assessing the condition of its various assets. So starting with roads, their condition is assessed by assigning a pavement condition index, or PCI, rating that ranges from 0 to 100 to each road segment based on the level of observed base-related and surface-related distresses. Sidewalks, similarly, are also assessed through physical condition assessments, whereby each sidewalk segment is assigned a condition score that also ranges from 0 to 100. And then for the remainder of the town's assets, their condition is assessed based on age relative to useful service life, or more generally, based on the percentage of useful life that has been consumed to date for each asset. For the town's facilities, however, that analysis is a little bit more granular in that the overall condition of each facility is based on the useful life, or the percentage of useful life that has been consumed by major facility components relative to their respective useful life expectancies, and not based on the age of the facility itself and the expected useful life of the facility itself. Okay, so then moving on to the summary of proposed levels of service. So presented in this slide is a summary of the town's key proposed levels of service that it plans to achieve over the next 10 years. Now, of course, there are a variety of different level of service measures that underlie the information that's presented here, and those are provided in much more detail within the asset management plan report itself. But here are the key proposed levels of service that are generating material financial impacts. So for the town's roads, the key proposed level of service is to ensure that roads are maintained in adequate quality so that they are providing a comfortable mode of transportation to both vehicular and pedestrian traffic. And the town plans on achieving this proposed service level by ensuring that the road network average PCI rating is maintained above a 50, and also by upgrading the portion of the road network that's currently an LCB surface to an HCB surface at the time of that LCB road segment's reconstruction. For water and wastewater assets, the key proposed level of service is to ensure that there is sufficient treatment capacity to support both current and future demand for water and wastewater services. And to that end, the town will need to undertake some upgrades to its wastewater control plan, which are included within the financial forecast for water and wastewater assets and the financial strategy that I will present shortly. For facilities, the key proposed level of service is to ensure that the square footage of facilities aligns with both the operational requirements of the town, as well as the surface expectations of facility users. And the town currently does not expect to need to expand facility space over the next 10 years to meet the service expectations of the community. However, with respect to operational requirements, the town is currently experiencing some storage capacity constraints for the storage of public works and recreation equipment assets, which it hopes to address by adding approximately 5,600 square feet of storage space over the coming years. And then lastly, for the remainder of the town's assets, in more general terms, the proposed level of service is to ensure the reliable provision of municipal services. And this will be accomplished by undertaking timely replacements of assets and through the completion of regular maintenance activities to ensure that assets are being maintained in a fair or better condition. So presented in this slide now is the forecast of capital expenditures for the next 10 years, as well as a summary in the table on the right of how those capital expenditures will be funded. So as you will notice in this slide, the bulk of expenditures expected in the immediate terms in the next 2 or 3 years relate to the construction of the new police services building in 2027. In total, once the estimated impacts of inflation are incorporated, capital expenditures are expected to total approximately $73.5 million, or an average of about $7.4 million annually. Now, how is the town going to fund these expenditures? So these expenditures will be funded through a combination of funds held in capital reserves, annual OSIF and CCBF transfer payment revenues, as well as external debt. And it should be noted here that to fund the forecasted capital expenditures for tax-funded assets, it is expected that the town will need to borrow approximately $49.6 million in additional debt over the next 10 years. And I will detail what this means for the town's financial position towards the latter portion of this presentation. So now building upon the capital expenditure and financing forecast, presented in this slide is the annual life cycle funding target, as well as the current annual infrastructure funding gap that the town is currently facing for its tax-funded assets. So as I noted earlier, this asset management plan looks beyond just the requirements of OREG 58817 and outlines a suggested approach to achieving financial sustainability as it relates to the town's infrastructure assets. So presented in the left bar on this slide is the annual life cycle funding target for tax-funded assets. And more generally, an annual life cycle funding target represents the level of funding that is required annually to fully finance a life cycle management strategy over the long term. So by planning to achieve this funding level, the town would theoretically be able to fund capital works as they arise in full. However, in practice, as we know, capital expenditures are characterized by peaks and valleys and often fluctuate from one year to the next based on the life cycle activities being undertaken in that year. However, by planning to achieve the life cycle funding target over the long term, periods of relatively low capital needs would allow for a buildup in reserves that could be drawn upon times of relatively high needs. So the annual life cycle funding target for tax-funded assets sits at about $3.84 million. Now, relative to that target, the town allocated approximately $3.5 million in its 2025 budget towards capital-related needs, as shown in the right bar in the chart on the slide. Now, this allocation comprised contributions into reserves to the tune of about $800,000, ongoing OSIF and CCBF annual revenues, also to the tune of about $800,000. Debt repayments, so these are principal and interest payments on debt that was previously incurred to fund capital asset purchases, to the tune of about $760,000. And then finally, the portion of the tax levy in 2025 that was directly allocated to fund in-year capital expenditures to the tune of about $1.2 million. And the difference between the two numbers that you see there is the current annual infrastructure funding gap, which sits at approximately $314,000 annually. And the financial strategy presented in the asset management plan report seeks to eliminate this funding gap gradually over the next 10 years. So what does that mean overall? So here it's a chart that I've presented a number of times to council already, but just to briefly go over it again, what you'll see here in the bars on this chart are the various different expenditures that are projected or forecasted for the town over the next 10 years. In the base of the bars are the net operating expenditures. Layered on top of that are the annual interest and principal payments on debt. And then finally, on the top portion of the bars are the capital expenditures that are happening. And then presented in the lines with the markers are the various different sources of financing for all those expenditure items. So first, of course, we start off with the tax levy, which is represented by the black bar with markers. Layering on top of that are the transfer payments, the OSIF and CCBF payments in the orange line with markers. And then finally, you see that the debt proceeds, so that's the $49.6 million of additional debt that would be required to fund capital expenditures in excess of what could be funded through other sources. And then it might be a little bit difficult to see in this chart, but in the Green Mountain in the back is the year-end balance in capital reserves. And so what you'll see there is that by the end of 2026, the capital reserves or funds held in capital reserves are being fully utilized. And so as part of the financial strategy, there was a reserve floor that was modeled, and the balance of funds held in capital reserves sits at the reserve floor over the 10-year forecast period. So all those funds are being fully utilized. And so in order to fund these capital expenditures, or all the various different expenditure items here, as well as to eliminate the infrastructure funding gap, the town would need to increase its annual tax levy by approximately 4.2% annually. And if we assume a 1.14% annual increase to assessment resulting from new assessment growth, so once we incorporate that in, which really is a percentage determined based on historical assessment growth data, we would expect that the annual tax rate increases to amount to approximately just over 3% annually. So now moving on into water and wastewater. So here, again, presented here is the capital expenditure and financing forecast, where you'll see that the total capital expenditures for water and wastewater assets amount to approximately $115 million over the next 10 years, or an average of $11.5 million annually. And the bulk of these expenditures are really related to the wastewater control plant upgrades, where on an inflated basis, those expenditures are expected to total approximately $74 or so million. Now, in terms of how these expenditures will be funded, there really are two sources. The first is the contributions from capital reserve and reserve funds to the tune of about $37.1 million. And then finally, it's development charges. So because that wastewater control plant upgrade is required to support growth, the full cost of the wastewater control plant ups are expected to be eventually recovered through development charges to the tune of about $77.9 million. Now, looking at the annual infrastructure funding gap for water and wastewater assets, we see that first, the life cycle funding target sits at approximately 3.94, just under $4 million annually. And to note, this funding target does include the additional life cycle cost generated by undertaking the upgrades to the wastewater control plant. So that's been fully incorporated into this analysis. And then relative to that target, the town allocated approximately $2.7 million towards capital-related needs for its water and wastewater assets in the 2025 budget, which then means that the annual infrastructure funding gap for water and wastewater assets sits at approximately $1.25 million annually. And so now, in terms of what does this mean to eliminate the funding gap and also fund all the various different expenditure items, we see that the estimated annual rate increases would have to amount to approximately 5.76% annually. And then finally, presented in this slide is the annual debt load forecast for the town overall. So this is both for water and wastewater and for tax funded assets. The debt load of a municipality is defined as the sum of annual debt repayments. So those are the ongoing annual principal and interest payments expressed as a percentage of the municipality's own source revenues. So through the rules that have been established by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, a municipality's debt capacity is capped at a level where no more than 25% of a municipality's own source revenues may be allocated towards servicing debt, so towards repaying the principal and interest payments. So the debt load, in essence, cannot exceed 25%. So as I did note earlier, the capital expenditure forecast proposes additional debt financing of about $45.6 million over the forecast period for tax-supported assets and none for rate-supported assets. Based on a forecast of the town's own source revenues, the projected annual debt payments would stay within the provincial policy limit over the forecast period, totaling approximately 16% of own source revenues by 2035, which is illustrated in the bottom portion of the bars in this chart. However, it should be noted that while the town eventually expects to recover the costs associated with the planned upgrades to its wastewater control plant through development charges, it is expected that the initial construction costs would require additional debt financing. Now, that level of debt financing that will eventually be required will depend on a variety of different factors, including the amount of development charges that the town is able to collect up to the date of construction. So as an example, which is presented in this slide, and again, I do want to be clear that this is simply an example. What you'll see in the dotted white portion of the bars in this chart is what the debt load might look like if the town was able to finance 1/3 of the initial construction cost through already collected development charges. And so under such a scenario, the town's debt load is actually expected to surpass the annual repayment limit by 2030. So now, in light of this, the town should consider all of its available options to manage the level of debt required to fund that initial construction cost associated with a wastewater control plant upgrade. And those options may include entering into front-end financing arrangements with developers, as well as proactively seeking out additional grant funding opportunities as well. And so that brings me to the end of my presentation, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions and receive any feedback that council may have at this stage.
Thank you, Sudhay. Council, any comments or questions? Deputy Mayor Dickert.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Sudhay. It's section 4.2.2 of your report and page 71 of our council package, but it talks about the annual Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund and the formula. And I'm just wondering, I'm not clear on what that statement's really saying. It says, as a result of this formula change, the town's OSIF allocation may continue to change in the coming years, and the amount of OSIF funding will need to be monitored. Can you just expand on that section a bit?
Yeah, so what we have noticed more recently with respect to annual OCIF transfer payment revenues is that there was a sort of a major paradigm shift in how those annual allocations were calculated. So previously, those allocations were distributed to municipalities based on the historical cost of assets. So the cost at which assets were initially purchased. That sort of value was fed into a funding formula, which then determined how that pool of money was distributed to the 444 municipalities in Ontario. That was recently changed, where now the funding formula doesn't look at historical costs. It now looks at the current replacement cost of assets and uses that as an input into the funding formula to determine those allocations on an annual basis. And so the statement there is just more generally saying that in the recent past, we have experienced this sort of paradigm shift in how OSIF funding was calculated. And so the recommendation is to monitor that, because currently the financial forecast expects that annual OSIF payments will be held at their current allocations. However, that is of course subject to change, which then would materially affect the financial strategy.
So having this asset management plan or that you've created here, if I'm understanding this correctly, these numbers being readily available should support our applications for grants and help us be more successful?
Yeah, through your worship, I won't comment on being more successful, but certainly this should aid in grant funding application. In fact, with respect to OSIF funding cannot be allocated to anything that doesn't have an asset management plan associated with it. So any capital expenditures that you're using OSIF funding for should be part of an asset management plan. And certainly with this asset management plan, we are showing about 46 or so million dollars of debt required to fund expenditures for tax-funded assets. And so certainly that's something to strengthen a grant funding application, understanding that once the wastewater control plant is incorporated, or the debt associated with it is incorporated, the town is expected to exceed its provincial annual repayment limit. So all of that sort of in conjunction with each other should help strengthen a grant funding application. Again, I'll sort of reserve my comments on the potential success of those applications.
Okay. Councillor Cable?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the presentation. I'm on page 25 of our package, which I think is 2-11 of the report, and it talks about the percentage of LCB surface treated roads going to 0% by 2035. So am I reading correctly then that over the next 10 years, we will be completely getting rid of those roads, all those projects will be completed and will be completely asphalt surface roads by 2035?
Through your worship, yes, and that is the proposed level of service. So the capital plan presented within this asset management plan undertakes the completion of upgrades to LCB roads to HCB surface. So the target is by 2035 that the entire road network would be with an HCB surface.
Thank you. And if I can ask another question, a few of your pages reference an annual allowance to address a backlog of different assets. And I'm wondering, do we currently collect, or how are we proposing that would be paid for? I know at one point we had talked about taking out a loan to pay off the backlog. And in this report, it kind of has it spread over a period of, it looks about 5 years. Are we proposing that backlog would still be paid for through debt or through increased tax rates?
Yeah, through your worship, that's a great question. So in terms of the financial forecast, or the financial model rather, it really is agnostic to how the various sources of financing are applied to the various different capital expenditures. So in that sense, we are expecting debt to be required to the tune of about 46 or I believe $49 million, in fact. Now, how the town chooses to appropriate that debt to what capital expenditure is really up to the town and would be decided through the town's treasury department. But in total, in the aggregate, we would expect, just under $50 million of debt to be required, which really is needed because the other sources of financing would be fully expended. So those other sources being funds held in capital reserves, as well as the OSIF transfer payment. So again, that's a bit of a question that would need to be resolved through a budgeting and treasury process. That's a little bit outside of the scope of our work, but in the aggregate, we would expect about $50 or so million of debt to be required.
Okay, anyone else? Sude, I have a question. I want to talk about development charges, knowing that we don't have those DCs right now, and the province is looking at, I forget, is it Bill 5 or Bill 3, reducing or even delaying those charges? Does that affect the numbers in this report?
Yeah, and again, a great question. So there's a lot of unknowns currently with how the town will collect its development charges, as well as how it's going to apportion those development charges to the various different growth-related expenditures that it expects over the coming years. And so a lot of those questions, and actually all of those questions, will be resolved through the development charges background study that the town is currently completing. And our team is working very closely alongside the team that's also completing the development charges background study to ensure that all of this analyses that arise from the development of the asset management plan appropriately make their way through into the development charges study. So unfortunately, I don't have some concrete answers for you at this stage, but a lot of those questions that you do have, which are pretty reasonable at this point, will be addressed through the upcoming development charges study, background study.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for your report. I'm looking at page 78, and the tax levy, the town would need to increase the tax levy by 4.7%. My question, I guess, is going forward, as the economy slows, and if it does slow or we go into a recession, I'm just wondering how we're going to be able to manage this debt and a debt load of that we're going to have to spend over the next 25 to 30 years. And I think it's very important that we look at how we're going to control our spending and our debt load.
Yeah, through your worship. Yeah, there's typically a few different approaches, right? So currently, we are expecting that the town would need to increase its tax levy by approximately 4.2% annually over the next 10 years. However, if the town chooses, and I should say that at that level of tax levy increases, the amount of debt that's being taken on amounts to about $50 or so million. Now, alternatively, the town may choose to increase its tax levy increases on an annual basis. And what that would mean is that you're basically increasing the rate of contributions being made into your capital reserves, assuming that additional increase gets contributed into your capital reserves. And as a consequence of that then reduces the amount of debt that would need to be taken on over the next 10 years. So that's one approach of managing the level of debt, is to increase the rate of contributions into your capital reserves and reserve funds. The other sort of way to manage it would be to proactively seek out grants and as many grant funding opportunities as possible. And then lastly, understanding that the town's debt load would exceed the provincially legislated debt repayment limit due to the wastewater control plant. There is again a suggestion in the asset management plan to engage in front-end financing arrangements with developers so that when you are undertaking the construction of those upgrades, that those initial construction costs can be heavily funded through funds already collected through your development charges. So some ways of managing that debt, but understanding that all of this is very sensitive to just macroeconomic forces that we're all subject to. And lastly, what I will say is that this asset management plan really is a snapshot, right? So this is what the snapshot looks like currently for the next 10 years. It is very much expected that that snapshot is subject to continual change. In that sense, this asset management plan really is a living document where the underlying analyses need to be revised on a periodic basis as those various different inputs get revised as well to recast the snapshot. And typically we would recommend that snapshot gets recast at least on an annual basis and presented to council.
So Sude, is it correct to say that every municipality will be going through this study and looking at future decisions for the next 30 years?
Yeah, through your worship. So every municipality is required to produce a comprehensive asset management plan accompanied with proposed levels of service and a financial strategy to support the asset management plan by July 1st of this year. So that's the OREG requirement, and certainly every municipality is currently having the same conversations that we have had and are having now, which is, how do we manage the financial impacts that we're subject to, understanding that in some cases those impacts are pretty significant. So yes, certainly not a unique position to the town, or a unique situation to the town.
Thank you. We're not alone. So, Chris, you have a comment?
I just wanted to make a comment. We're not going to be borrowing 50 million tomorrow or anything like that. Just so you know, Sude is just telling you that's what we need to replace currently. We would do through our budgets and say, okay, this asset, yes, useful life, it's over and done with, but we can limp by with that for another so many years. But there's certain things that cannot be done. So that would be brought to council. So that's where we're going to be looking at the capital and stuff. But we have been being very diligent, putting monies aside for future capital, as you've known, with all our reserve funds, trying to do that. Water, wastewater was a perfect example of how we were able to fund a lot of our projects that way. But I mean, when you have a waste treatment plant that's in the $60 million, that's a lot. And we probably would not borrow for that until we got funding from the government. So we will limp along again until that gets there. So don't panic that we're going to go into debt right overnight. We can't go past the 25%. What we're trying to say is, okay, we need to know at least that 4.2% a year. We need to have at least going forward to try and fund it as much as we can. Same with water and wastewater. We need to have our revenues go up at least 5.7%. And we continue doing that forward, and then we apply for grants. We get all the other applications. As for OSIF, it went up 40,000. So Sude is correct. It continues to change because we present it to them, our new replacement costs versus the historical costs. So everything just switches on a dime all the time. But this, if you continue to focus that you're putting exact same amount every year away, that you're always going to have a 4% increase to cover your future, that's what you want to make sure that you're doing. Unless Sude has some other comments there, but you're not going to go in debt 50 million, right? Just like that to do those backlog items.
Thanks for that, Chris. Okay, any other comments or questions? Councillor Hudson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just, there's a couple of things I just want clarified for my own personal self. So on page 66, we have land improvements. I'm just wondering if you can speak to that, what that is. 1 million, sorry, the eyeballs, 1,160,000 for 2026.
Yeah, so oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's all good.
Through your worship, the inventory of land improvement assets for the town comprises the 4 pedestrian bridges, the 1 boardwalk, as well as some sports fields, parking lots, and a variety of their smaller ancillary assets. Yeah, so I'm not sure if that fully answers your question or if you might be referring to something else.
No, that's good. And the other question I have on page 78, it's showing the development charges initially, and then it just stops. So perhaps you can, even though that is something that we aren't currently doing, maybe you can speak to that?
Yeah, certainly, and through your worship. So development charges really are a financing source for growth-related expenditures, right? And they can only be spent on growth-related expenditures. And so in that sense, the only growth-related expenditures currently that we're expecting with respect to water and wastewater assets is the upgrade to the wastewater control plant, which is getting fully funded through those development charges. The remainder of the expenditures are related to existing assets that are undergoing replacements or various different rehabilitations throughout their normal life cycles. And so those expenditures are not growth related, and so we would not expect development charges to be utilized for those types of expenditures.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're done with the questions, Sude. So thank you very much for the presentation, and we'll move on with our agenda. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye now. Okay, item 7 is business arising from the minutes, and we have a notice of motion from Councillor Cable. And the subject is the flag and proclamation policy. Councillor Cable, I'll let you read the notice of motion. You will, I'm assuming you will move it, and then I'll ask for a seconder.
Thank you, Your Worship. Whereas policy ADM-013, flag and proclamation policy, guides the procedures for flying flags and issuing proclamations within the municipality. And whereas municipalities are increasingly reviewing and updating their flag and proclamation protocols to reflect evolving community values and to ensure clarity, consistency, and inclusivity. And whereas local and national tragedies have resulted in inquiries about the appropriateness of lowering the flags on town properties. And whereas the town's current flag policy does not reference flying the Every Child Matters flag in recognition of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation during the month of September, as approved by Council in 2022. And whereas other local municipalities and organizations have enacted policies that allow for flags, such as the Pride flag, to be flown annually for a period of time without the need for a special proclamation request. And whereas it is beneficial to examine best practices and examples from neighboring and comparable municipalities, therefore be it resolved that Council directs staff to undertake a review of the current flag and proclamation protocol and provide a report with recommended updates and revisions to Council for consideration no later than November 17th, 2025.
And you will move that motion, Councillor Cable?
Yes.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hudson? Okay, discussion. Councillor Cable?
Thank you, Worship. I think the motion highlights the major items that come to my mind when looking at our existing policy. For example, when it's appropriate to lower the town flags in recognition of significant local and national tragedies, such as what recently happened in Walkerton. Clarification of flags that will be raised annually without the need for resident or council request to do so. And I also think that this provides an opportunity to look at other best practices for flags and proclamations since the policy was last updated. So certainly if there are any questions or suggestions about the notice of motion, I would certainly welcome those from Council.
Thank you. Any comments? So Councillor Cable, there's just a couple that I would like to highlight. I believe in updating and reviewing our policies as needed. The fourth paragraph where it speaks about the Every Child Matters flag leaves the impression that we have not been following our recommendations from February 2022. And I want residents and the public, council members to understand that there was 6 recommendations in that report, and we have been following them every year. But how it's written here, it leaves that just the indication that we may not have been following them. And the other one, the next paragraph, in my opinion, I don't believe we should be raising any flag automatically. If we raise one, we will have to raise every flag that there is a request. If we receive the request and they meet the criteria, what is the difference between Pride and anyone else? Who makes that decision? Right now, the policy, if you meet the criteria, the flag is raised. If you do not, it is not raised. The policy works very well when you're raising flags. The other, yes, our CAO did indicate that she will be doing a report on lowering, half-masting the flag. But to automatically raise a flag, I do not think that is fair to every organization. Just my comments. Any other comments? Councillor Cable, do you want to respond?
I certainly think, and I hope that when staff review the policy, that they will look at what other municipalities and organizations are doing. Certainly, I don't see, like, as you acknowledge, the Every Child Matters flag is raised every September. Certainly, that's not what I intended by that paragraph. I think all I was saying was that in our recommendations in 2022, we had said that the Every Child Matter flag would be raised, and it's just not currently included in our policy because it hasn't been updated since that date. So I think similar to how the Every Child Matters flag is raised annually, perhaps we consider, are there other flags that would be raised? And certainly I don't see the Pride flag as a political item that you know, an organization has to request. I think it's perhaps different from some of our other flags where there's specific organizations that are asking for that flag to be raised.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor of the notice of motion? 1, 2, 3, 4. And Councillor Cable, you're in favor. I see your hand is raised. Yes, that carries. Okay, moving on. Item 8 is Council and Committee of the Whole minutes. The first one, 8.1, is our regular council meeting minutes from May 20th. I need a mover and seconder. Councillor Sackle and Councillor Fleet. And I do not have any highlights unless someone has comments. I will call the question. All in favor of those minutes? That is carried. Item 8.2 is Committee of the Whole meeting minutes from June the 2nd. And again, I need a mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Dickert and Councillor Hawking. And again, regular meeting minutes. So any discussion, errors, omissions? All in favor? That is carried. Chris?
Yes, I wanted to check with the clerk. I don't see a motion to accept the 2025 asset management plan that was presented. I don't see a motion anywhere for that.
Oh, you mean the delegation?
The delegation, because we need to have that by July 1st.
Ah,
And I looked throughout and I thought, oh, I don't see a motion here.
there is not. So we'll turn to the clerk. So we have to do the 2/3 thing? No, we can just vote to accept.
Yes, we can vote to accept.
Good catch there, Chris. So we need a mover and seconder to accept the asset management plan from Watson and Associates dated June the 13th, 2025 as presented during our delegation. Deputy Mayor Dickert and Councillor Hawking. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Did we vote on 8.2? We have a mover and seconder and we did vote. Good. Oh yeah, we're on staff reports, item 9. We have 9.1. This is report HR 0425. The subject is the 2025 group benefits renewal. It's from Melissa Hilgendorf, our human resources manager, and I need a mover and seconder to put that on the floor. Councillor Sackle and Councillor Hawking. Melissa?
Thank you, Your Worship. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. So I'm pleased to present the town's 2025 group benefits renewal this afternoon, which begins on page 105 of the agenda package. So each year, our brokers from People Corporation work with Canada Life, who is the benefit plan provider, to evaluate our benefit plan, looking at premiums in relation to the cost and expenses to operate the program. So they analyze a number of factors, including utilization trends, inflation, our staff demographics, and to create a renewal for us that would be effective July 1st. We have seen an increase, a small increase in utilization of our health, vision, and dental claims, which is quite common. However, the level of utilization this renewal is lower than that of past renewals. Physiotherapy, massage, and chiropractor remain the top 3 paramedical services that are used, and the top medications claimed through our plan provide care for cancer, arthritis, and glaucoma. In previous years, it was cancer, arthritis, and diabetes, so we have seen a little change there. And while we have seen an increase in utilization, our pooling provisions are in place to help safeguard against extreme cost increases. So what this means is that once the total claim amount for an employee reaches $15,000, the remainder is removed from our claims experience and is pooled so that it does not impact our rates. At this renewal, over $47,000 in claims were pooled. For financial implications, initially, Canada Life had proposed an overall increase of 17.9%. However, People Corporation has negotiated the final renewal increase down to 1.8%. This is a really excellent increase, where in the past we were seeing more in the past couple of years, like a 7.2, I believe, and 8.3 in our 2024 renewal. So we are seeing a bit of relief, which is great news. This increase represents an annual amount of $13,167.27, including PST. However, because the renewal occurs halfway into the year, then we're only impacted for 6 months worth of that cost. So the total financial impact reduces to $6,583.64 for 2025. We did anticipate that there would be an increase, and so these funds are covered within the approved 2025 budget. There is a table detailing the breakdown of the increase included on page 106 of the agenda package. And I just want to note that while council is approving the present renewal for the town division of the benefit plan only, the cost of the Hanover Police Service benefit plan is included for information and clarity for overall budget implications, and because we renew the benefit plan together as a whole. As part of renewing the plan, each year there is a claims fluctuation reserve, which is required to be funded to 15% of annual premiums. So as part of funding that, and after doing so, we have a balance of approximately $12,000 that will remain in the town's refund deposit account. This is an account that we set up a number of years ago now, so that if there's ever a surplus in the plan, we can take advantage of those funds. So these funds are the property of the town and they can be used as we deem appropriate. At this time, administration is recommending leaving those funds in the town's refund deposit account as a reserve so that we can pull from it for future health and wellness initiatives, or to help us fund that CFR, or to offset future benefit premium increases that might be more significant. The town's accidental death and dismemberment plan is through a company called AIG Canada, and it has remained unchanged since 2016 and represents a cost of approximately $158 a month plus tax. So overall, the cost for our benefits is definitely a significant expense, but the health and well-being of our staff remains very important. And we do have those pooling and refund accounting provisions in place to help provide some financial safeguards. This report supports strategic direction number 5, open and responsible government. And the recommendation is that report HR 0425 group benefits renewal be received, and that council accept the 2025 group benefits proposal from People Corporation for group benefits with Canada Life at a cost of approximately $735,390.88, including PST, and that council approve keeping available funds in the refund deposit account. I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you, Melissa. Are there any comments or questions? That was good negotiating to bring that rate down by the People Corporation. Oh, I don't see any hands raised, Melissa, so I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thanks, Melissa. Item 9.2 is report PB 0825. The subject is the easement agreement for 837 and 845 22nd Avenue A. And it's from Andrew Wilkin, Director of Development and Infrastructure, and our CBO. I need a mover and seconder to put this on the floor. Councillor Cable and Councillor Hudson. Andrew?
Thank you, Your Worship. In 2024, the property 854 24th Ave saw a zoning bylaw amendment and a severance occur on that property. The zoning bylaw was to allow for the rear yard to house a 7-unit townhouse that some of you may recall. That property, as the severance conditions are completed, will be known as 826 19th Street. Through the development of the property and the building permit application, it was determined that the best way to alleviate the requirements for a pump to pump the stormwater to 19th Street was to extend it west through gravity to get to 22nd Ave A. In discussions with the owner of the above referenced properties, enclosed, you will see the proposed stormwater easement agreement for lots 47 and 48 in the Saugeen Cedar Heights West Plan of Subdivision. The reference plan is attached, noting part 1 on lot 47, part 2 on lot 48. The easement will provide services to the rear yachts of the townhouses with the easement in favor of the town. I looked historically, easements like this for properties, I typically am able to include the signed easement from the property owners in the package with the redacted signatures. Unfortunately, I didn't have them when this report was prepared. I do have them currently now in hand. There are no financial implications of this report. The construction, the legal fees, the reference plan included herein, and any title registrations are all at the cost of the developer. The link to the strategic plan is safe and reliable infrastructure, and the recommendation is that report PB 825 easement agreement 837 and 845 2nd Ave A be received, and that council pass bylaws 3337-25 and 3339-25 to authorize their mayor and clerk to enter into an easement agreement for said storm sewer. And I'll answer any questions you have today.
Council, any discussion, comments? Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Your Worship. Andrew, just for my knowledge, so in the future, if there was an issue with any of the materials that are underneath this easement, it's the responsibility of the owner of the 7-plex to handle those? If there ever need to be work done on that?
Through Your Worship, no. If there was to be maintenance done from the property line through these easements, it would be the town that would conduct those repairs on the parts 1 and 2. So, similar to most other properties, you're responsible for your service to your property line. Generally speaking, the property line ends up at the town's line. In this instance, it wasn't really advantageous to do that, hence the easement requirement.
Okay, no other questions? All in favor of PB 0825? That is carried. 9.3 is report PB 0925. This is the sign bylaw, and it's from Andrew Wilkin, our Director of Development and Infrastructure, and our CBO. I need a mover and seconder to put this on the floor. Councillor Hocking and Deputy Mayor Dicker. Andrew?
Thank you again, Your Worship. Bylaw number 2916-15 for the regulation, erection, and maintenance of signs for the town of Hanover has been in effect since 2015. The bylaw is still strong. It is in good standing and it certainly is enforceable, which we enforce quite often. It's just it's a decade old and it was time to revisit a few things and clear a few things up. I've in the discussion portion included a chart of the changes. I've also included kind of a red working copy of the strike through amendments that have been proposed in the final copy that's also in the package. So I'm just going to touch on a few as I work through the red line markup starting on page 129 of the package. On page 131 under sign permits and fees, we really just clarifying, just like a building permit, need written authorization from an owner. If a sign's going to go on your property, require the owner's authorization. Something simple. Also noting a non-refundable fee is set out. For a sign permit, you require a fee anyways, just clarifying in here. Nothing different, just cleaning that up. I will move all the way over to page 137, special regulations pertaining to signs, and under H, subsection H, it just talks about advertising signs and the illumination of those signs. We looked at maybe putting some provisions in here and specific lighting numbers. It just got too confusing. All properties that would be subject to a sign permit would also be subject to site plan control. So when there is a large sign, it is also subject to site plan control. So we do have the ability in there to clarify the lighting levels. We also have the ability to clarify it under section H and give approvals what those are. Nighttime, daytime, it just got a little too much to try to explain it in here. So I think it'll just be done on a case by case basis with us having the ability in here to require those revisions from a property owner. In that same section under M, which would be page 138, we've been having a little bit of a problem with mobile signs. Mainly people trying to use a mobile sign as a permanent sign, adding a base to it and calling it permanent, which we're trying to avoid. It's not aesthetically pleasing, in an effort to kind of get those permanent signs out there. And really the point of a mobile temporary sign has a 2-month duration on it, not a 10-year duration on it. So just clarifying in here to give us the ability to mitigate those, as well as we've had that mobile sign a little bit in the back of pickup trucks, and then parking it close to the street, providing kind of some free advertising in those evenings. It's kind of a few one-offs, but giving us the ability to look after some of those instances as well. If I can hop over to page 140, across street banner signs. We had a query on this about a year ago for an cross street banner sign. Historically, we've had one down by the Hanover Park before. There is some structures up on either side. As we reviewed that, we realized we didn't really have very much verbiage at all on what the requirements of that would be. Grey County did, so we're just wanted to make reference to Grey County's requirements in that, and as well as if that were to ever proceed and approval were to occur, that the town would definitely have the ability to ensure that work is done correctly through its own contractor. Currently, what's up there now for posts aren't even high enough to allow for a banner sign right now. So there is quite a bit of work that would go into something like that. We do make reference to Grey County roads on here, because currently I can't see an instance where a crossroad banner sign would really be requested beyond a county road currently on 7th or 10th at this time. And beyond that, I think it's more some clerical updates and wording, a little bit of wording on awning signs, and not going beyond a street, but we know that's not going to occur. So we've just noted some sidewalks. There are no financial implications to this report. The link to the strategic plan is balanced growth, and the recommendation is that report PB 925, signed bylaw 3334-25 be received, and that council pass a bylaw respecting the erection and maintenance of signs, awnings, advertising devices, and marquees in the town of Hanover. As well, that bylaw 2916-15 be repealed. I'll answer any questions.
Thank you. Discussion, questions? Councillor Hudson.
I just have one question regarding the permits, like what's the cost of a permit for a sign? No idea.
For a permanent sign, for the most part, they're based on cost of construction. A sign permit, a temporary sign permit is $20 a month for 2 months. So you can do up to 2 months, so $40. But beyond that, it's usually about $8 for every 1,000 for cost of construction. Eight or 10, I'd have to have a look, but with a minimum fee of $60, which in most cases, most construction costs don't go beyond the minimum fee.
Councillor Cable.
No, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you very much, Andrew, for including the Across Street banner in the update. It certainly is something that the Agricultural Society had inquired about last year, and I'm just wondering if staff are investigating options to increase the height of those poles so that we can do that. I know for Sights and Sounds, we used to have that banner that would go across all the time, and certainly the requirement for height must have changed since that period of time. So not sure if it's possible to extend the height of those posts or whether we would have to put new posts in that area.
Through your worship, yeah, we didn't undertake a rigorous process, so to speak, on what it would what the feasibility was to extend those. I do think it's probably, if it can be done, it would likely be cheaper to add an extension above that. But I would say you're probably into the $8,000 to $10,000 range to do that for something that really is the first time we've been asking quite a few years. So high level ballpark, I'm guessing that's what the number is, but no, I haven't investigated beyond that at this time.
Councillor Hudson.
So with our homecoming coming up in a few years, is that something that maybe we should look into so that we can advertise our homecoming?
Might be cheaper to have mobile signs.
Yes, we could, but as Andrew stated, a high level estimate of $10,000, and we've had one inquiry since the last 5 or more years. We might be better to look at alternative solutions for that. So.
I don't want to say anything wrong. We can look at anything if it was, council's desire that we review that and have it prepared for, future use, and maybe even an increased fee to help offset what that actual investment would be for that signage. It may be something that we would have to investigate quite a bit more.
Okay, I don't see any other hands raised, so all in favor of PB 0925. That is carried. Item 10 is committees of council minutes, and we have 4 sets of minutes that we'll review and highlight. So I need a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Fleet and Councillor Sackle. The first one is 10.1, the Joint Health and Safety Committee minutes from June the 10th. And Melissa Hilgendorf is on the call, and she will highlight those. Melissa?
Thank you. So yes, the committee met last week on June 10th and approved past and department-specific committee meeting minutes. We discussed that noise level readings need to be completed for the new fire hall and that staff continue to receive calls related to encampments. Health and safety inspection and incident reports were reviewed with no specific trends identified. The committee reviewed an update on health and safety budget status as well as upcoming safety training. And updates were confirmed for multiple of our standard operating guidelines. And this did include our confined space entry program, which has been a goal of the committee for quite some time now. So that was a great project to look at concluding. The committee has discussed recruiting a new member who will replace Zach Smith from our water wastewater treatment plant, who has indicated that he's going to be leaving the committee. We also discussed an inquiry received that was related to use of a chemical for testing that's done down at the water and wastewater treatment plant. And the committee reviewed 2025 goals and upcoming meeting dates prior to adjourning. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Council, any discussion, comments? I have asked if Sherry would highlight what the plan is when encampments are reported, as it was referenced in these minutes, just so not only is it fresh in our minds, but also for our residents. So Sherry, if you could highlight what that plan is, especially with reference to Grey County.
So our process that we implement internally is if there's an emergency situation, we're calling 911, obviously. But our encampment notice is forwarded to a number of internal staff members, including fire, bylaw, police, parks, recreation, and culture, and also Grey County. So the encampment notice engages our county homelessness program outreach staff, who attempt to make a visit to that site within 48 hours of the encampment notice. That site visit will result in next steps and resource plans. For example, county staff may assist with a housing plan if that's something that the person is interested in, or if CMHA needs to be engaged to assist with mental health and addictions plans. A reply is provided to staff who noted the encampment accordingly, and then we engage and become involved with other town departments if that's the direction that we choose. There are times with encampments, if they are being respectful and not hindering areas, then we let them be for a little bit until we can see if the resources available through the county and other agencies can assist the individuals and move them to more appropriate locations or housing, or connect them with other resources. So that, in a nutshell, is the encampment process accordingly.
Very good. And it's also good to know that not everyone will accept offers of support or housing. There is, and you can't force that on anyone, but some people just do not want to have the resources, given to them, like the housing or, overnight stays. They're just, that's not where they're at right now. So. Okay, item 10.2 is the Age-Friendly Advisory Committee minutes. Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship. Age Friendly met May 26th. I'll just go over some of the highlights. Loretta Dunn shared a presentation from Central Ontario Age Friendly Network meeting that she attended. The presenter was Kelly Purdue, Outreach Coordinator, Friendly Voice. I sent the information out to everyone on council. 5.1 World Elder Abuse Day was June 15th. We flew the flag. Another update, accessibility in Ontario public buildings and extension has been granted to business to allow them time to make their business accessible. The other one is Hanover Community Improvement Program. Brandon Dobson shared the business can apply to the Community Improvement Program for financial assistance. Age-friendly articles, the volunteer fair, which is coming up tomorrow, I guess, and then World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, which there's going to be an article in the paper, or was. Brandon Dobson touched on the senior games and grant updates. And again, the volunteer fair will be partnered with the Hanover Library and will run June 17th from 4 to 7. And then one other one was Grey Bruce Public Health has also updated their resource booklet for age-friendly fall prevention. We'll share digital versions and physical copies of the booklet with the committee members. And that's all I have to report from Age Friendly. I'll take any questions.
Thank you. I don't see any hands raised, so we'll move on. Item 10.3 is Parks, Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee minutes. Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Worship. The Parks, Recreation, and Culture Advisory Committee met on May the 28th. In items for information, we did receive an article about council following up on the North Huron recreation fee changes, and certainly there was significant increases that were put in place a couple of years ago. And the article outlined that council was seeking information on how that had turned out, and certainly the significant rate hikes had not helped their memberships in the coming years. We had an update on the splash pad project, and certainly that is coming along very nicely at Hanover Town Park, and I'm sure that Councillor Hawking will provide us with an update in the next set of minutes. We reviewed the CSIRF grant applications that have been submitted, and so we have submitted an application for Stream 2 related to the Kingsland Ballpark Pavilion and some LED lighting for that ballpark, and we have also submitted an application for a repair at the P&H Center for the roof. Under Parks and Recreation Facilities, we noted a variety of different activities that were coming up, which is great to see our facilities being used, and the disc golf course has reopened as of May the 19th. The main items for discussion were around a variety of policies which were being updated. The first was ice rental booking policy and agreement terms, and the recommendation was to update the date for organizations to give back ice without penalty, and the recommendation is moving to September the 8th. And so it is getting earlier, and the idea is that we will see one more update in the next ice season, which will pull that back by 1 week as well. So it'll be very early in September for organizations to give back ice. We also reviewed the fee assistance policy of the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Department, and that one was deferred, seeking some additional staff input around fee assistance for memberships and things like that. 9.2.3 was the Labyrinth of Distinction policy and procedures, and essentially based on the way that the voting process has gone in previous years, staff are recommending some clarification around the voting process for nominees. I think those are the main highlights, Your Worship. If there's any questions, I'd be certainly open to any questions.
I have a question. Explain that give back ice. Is that reduced membership in the groups and they don't want to go 3 times a week, or?
Certainly Sherry may wish to comment, but there is a time where organizations have committed to having a certain number of hours of ice each year. And so this is the date where if their numbers have changed or they no longer require that much ice each week, they would have an opportunity to give it back without penalty.
So that's exactly right. Councillor Cable explained it very well. The key here is that ice allocation usually happens by July of each year. And so the groups are allocated a total number of hours of ice. So for example, using minor hockey as an example, maybe they were allocated 30 hours of ice and their registrations may dictate that they only need 25 hours of ice. It means that they are giving back 5 hours that we can then allocate to someone else or sell to someone else. And the earlier that we can know that information, sets our facility up well for being able to actually rent that ice versus leave it vacant. And of course, renting ice, we aim to rent all of our ice ideally between 4 and 11 p.m. To help from an ice rental perspective. So that's the idea of having it early. And most groups have their registration by June anyways. So that's the intent.
Good, thank you for that. Okay, the last set of minutes, and there's 2 of them, is the Splash Pad Ad Hoc Committee minutes. Councillor Hawking.
Thank you, Your Worship. Unfortunately, I had to send my regrets for the meeting on April 16th, so I'm just going to sort of check from the minutes. The rec advisory minutes gave a good summary of just exactly where we were on July the 1st. But items for discussion evolved around signage and the donor recognition, and it was decided that the cost to engrave the armor stones is $575 each. And so we have come to a consensus that the engraving will be for all platinum and diamond level donors. The committee will provide an update on project costs and fundraising. And as you have heard, that we've pierced $400,000. So that's a thanks again to our entire community for their support. Laura went over construction change orders, and in the next set of minutes, there was some that were documented. And again, July the 1st, we are going to have the grand opening at the Hanover Town Park, and look forward to having a great day. The second set of minutes dealt with April the 29th. Again, we always highlight our fundraising update. We did have another fundraising activity. It's not in these minutes, but Pelican held an event for us this past Friday and donated, I don't have the exact amount, but made a donation based on the number of water bottles sold. So I hope you filled up on Friday. There is the update on that I talked about, change orders. And we decided to go with concrete versus interlocking. And this is a good point here, 5.1.4. The deck driveway addition, there was two ways to go. We could do it, just minimal work, and probably would have to be done in a couple of years. We decided to do it right, so we've allocated granular A and B, and given the assurance that this is the proper way to go. Again, grand opening planning is going on. We're sending our invitations out to all our donors, and hopefully we'll get a good attendance. And our next meeting is, it's June the 4th. That's the one I referred to. There's also another meeting in end of June to plan for the final planning for July the 1st. So I think at the June 25th, we're going to disband the group at that point in time, because we've done our task, and it's been a great delight to be part of young, energetic volunteers who really believed in the cause. So thanks to include me in their committee. But I'll answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any comments, discussion? Okay, so that was the last set of minutes for that motion. The motion is moved by Councillor Fleet, seconded by Councillor Sackle, and it is to receive the information and approve the recommendations contained in the minutes that were just highlighted. All in favor? That is carried. Item 11 is bylaws. We have 6 bylaws. I need a mover and seconder before I ask for the intent. Councillor Cable, you want to separate?
No, I'm just wondering if we could separate the procedure bylaw.
Okay. Which is 11.5. Okay. So I need a mover and seconder for all the bylaws except 11.5, which is bylaw number 333825. So Councillor Cable and Deputy Mayor Dickert. And I will ask the clerk for the intent of the bylaws.
Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw 3334-25 is a bylaw to regulate signs, awnings, advertising devices, and marquees. Bylaw 3335-25 is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the May 20th, 2025 regular council meeting. Bylaw 3336-25 is a bylaw to strike the rates of taxation for 2025. Bylaw 3337-25 is a bylaw to enter into an easement agreement, and bylaw 3339-25 is a bylaw to also enter into an easement agreement.
So it's been moved by Councillor Cable, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dickert, that bylaws numbers, I'm going to do it this way, numbers 3334-25 through to 3339-25, with the exception of 333825 be introduced and that they be taken as read a first, second, and third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and inserted in the bylaw book. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. So now we'll do bylaw number 3338-25, and I'll ask for a mover and seconder for that before Councillor Hawking and Councillor Fleet for the intent of that bylaw.
Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw 3338-25 is a bylaw to govern the proceedings of the council and committees of the town of Hanover.
Thank you. So it's been moved by Councillor Hawking, seconded by Councillor Fleet, that bylaw number 3338-25 be introduced and that it be taken as read a first, second, and third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and inserted in the bylaw book. Is there any further discussion? This is on the procedure bylaw. Seeing none, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is carried. Okay, item 12 is correspondence requiring action, and we do not have any. Item 13 is reports and correspondence for information. The first one, 13.1, is the Grey County Joint Municipal Accessibility Advisory Committee. And Melissa Hilgendorf is going to highlight those minutes. Melissa?
Thank you. The Grey County Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee met on virtually on May 15th, where Scott Gregg was elected as vice chair. The committee then reviewed and provided comments on a number of projects, including accessibility updates that Southgate and Georgian Bluffs are making to some of their recreational facilities, specifically some lobby seating and washrooms and items of that nature, and improvements that the city of Owen Sound is making to the intersection that is right outside the County of Grey Administration Building. There was lots of discussion around that one. Various items were discussed under other business, including accessible EV charge stations, AODA desk audits, and building code updates related to accessibility and how they are impacting building permits going forward. The next meeting was set for July 17th, followed by adjournment.
Thank you. Any comments, discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you, Melissa. 13.2 is the Community Safety and Wellbeing Planning minutes. Councillor Sacco.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Community Safety and Wellbeing Planning Group met virtually on May 20th, 2025. And I'm going to begin with how Victim Services Bruce Grey can support your organization. Jane Hartley, the Executive Director of Victim Services for Bruce Grey, gave an overview of the services that have been provided by Victim Services Bruce Grey. There are 3 key pillars to include assistance to victims, collaborative partnerships, and education and awareness to help provide a safer community for all of us. Programs and services include Victim Crisis Assist in Ontario, Victim Quick Response Program Plus, and Project Lifesaver. Volunteers assist to reduce the impact of trauma, to provide access to essential services within the community, to promote community wellness, and to assist in restoring a sense of control to a victim. Victim Quick Response Programs offered as a last resort. It offers very limited financial assistance. Volunteers assist with the application process, and they follow up with the victims. Project Lifesaver is a proactive life protection program for individuals who are living with cognitive disorders who may wander. Jane advised that there are offices located throughout Grey and Bruce counties. The main office is in Kincardine, but there are satellite offices in South Bruce OPP Detachment in Walkerton, Saugeen Shores Police Services in Port Elgin, Owen Sound Police Services, and West Grey Police Services in Durham. I'm going to move down to the situation table for acutely elevated risk, also known as STAR, with updates by Alexis Cook. In 2024, there were 23 such situations. 17 met the acutely elevated risk requirements, and I'm happy to say that all 17 were closed. Currently, in 2025, there are 15 situations. 93% met the acutely elevated risk. 7 out of 14 have closed so far, and 6 out of 7 had their rate lowered. Alexis shared sector identification referral stats for January 1st, 24 to May 18th, 25. Study flags for the period January 1st, 25 to May 18th, 25 reflect that domestic violence is the #1 flag for situations. Higher level risk priorities from the same period have mental health and cognitive function as the #1 factor, and protective factor grouping for the same period has family supports as the #1 protective factor. Under the action table highlight for mental health, Scott McCabe reports that system level alignment and planning update includes the development of work plans, and that their next steps include revision of the Grey Bruce Mental Health and Addictions Terms of Reference in order to allow for improved input from community partners. Crime prevention. The current chair, Chief Robert Martin of the West Grey Police, is retiring. So our new incoming chair is Marla Barfoot. You've probably seen that in the news media. There is a cannabis and driving resource and education campaign that's happening. The drug trafficking town halls have completed by now. Unfortunately, the Hanover one was canceled, and I've been unable to find out why that happened. Human trafficking town halls were very successful. Additional sessions were being coordinated for the fall. A hate crime working group is currently in development. Next steps are including the development of a podcast with synthesized information from drug trafficking town halls. They want to create online targeted ads with OSAD for cannabis and driving campaign. Plan online speaker panel for cannabis and driving for the fall/winter, and attend a children's safety day with road safety education for youth, and complete consultations for the hate crime working group and onboard partners. Under poverty and income, the 2024 tax season support for people with low income has been completed from March to May. They updated the 211, which is a free and confidential province-wide helpline that connects people with social and community services. They used social media to recruit 23 volunteers in 24-25, and they partnered with the Hanover Library for a new location. Under housing and homelessness, Josh Gibson of the Homelessness Planning Table pointed out that the priority efforts continue on education. The motel program has contributed greatly. Bruce County is working on data points for presentation to council. Grey County will do the same. Staff efforts to supporting encampments for appropriate referrals is taking place. Grey and Bruce will both be working on data pertaining to winter of 2024 housing efforts. And the next steps will include a fall education program and continuation to build capacity and partnerships. And lastly, Kelsey Mighton of the Community Drug and Alcohol Strategy says that successful funding for a dedicated coordinator has happened and announcements will follow. Efforts prioritized to reduce stigma related to substance abuse and its impact through evidence-informed training, education, and communication have occurred. And on the next page, Chief Ambrose provided an update on content associated with the River District meeting recently held in Owen Sound from a policing aspect, balancing complaints against policing policies and enforcement. Under general notes, Alexis points out that the advisory committee survey has gone out. It closes tomorrow. And this is a requirement to meet all the provincial direction to review and revise our plan as required by July 2025. And that allows us to get some income to help with community safety and well-being. And I mentioned last time that our municipal rep COP was forming. We had our first meeting on Tuesday, June the 10th, and the focus was on age-friendly committees, our communities. I was pleased to say that Hanover is an age-friendly community, and they had lots of questions for me, which gladly I had the answers to because Parks and Rec helped me out with all that information. So that was wonderful. The action table charts are attached for anyone who wishes to see more information on mental health, homelessness, addictions and substance abuse, and income and poverty. I'd be happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you. A lot of information in those minutes and good information. I don't see any hands raised, so we'll move on. Item 13.3, this is correspondence from Brockton. It is addressed to the chair, Chairperson Hawking, and the Saugeen Municipal Airport Commission. The Town of Hanover and the Municipality of West Gray have been CC'd on this correspondence. And it states that Brockton Council received the resolution from the Saugeen Municipal Airport recommending that a working group be set up to renegotiate the current municipal cost-sharing agreement for the airport. And they look forward to attending the meeting once it has been organized by the commission. That's for information. Okay. Item 14 is good news and celebrations, councillor staff updates, and we'll start with Councillor Sacco.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I've been lucky enough to volunteer at Light on Main, and they're now taking a summer break. So I'd like to thank all of those people who made meals in the kitchen, the people who came and set up the tables every week and all the chairs, and of course to all those who served all of the meals. I enjoyed working with all of you. I look forward to seeing not only those volunteers, but all the guests who come regularly again in the fall. I'd also like to double up on what Councillor Fleet said earlier. I'd like to encourage the public to attend the volunteer fair at the P&H Center on the arena floor tomorrow night from 4 to 7. I think it's a great opportunity to find out how you can help benefit our community by coming out and finding what's out there. Maybe you just don't know, and maybe there's something there that you might be interested in. Thank you.
And just to comment on Light on Main, I did attend on Wednesday and thanked all the volunteers and the people who attend to come out and eat and socialize. And I had the privilege of sitting with a lady whose birthday was on Wednesday and she was 90 years old. So very nice lady. Anyone else have Councillor Fleet?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple things. Hanover Raceway is opening day. Great to see racing return for another season. It's a big part of our entertainment district. They had their little wiener dog races on this past Saturday, which was a huge success. So it's nice to see our local raceway up and going again. I ask everyone to get out and support the raceway. Also, I just want to congratulate everybody at the Chamber Awards, all the winners and everyone that's was attended. I think it was a great event, and congratulations to all the winners.
Anyone else? Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Your Worship. This Saturday, June 21st, is the National Indigenous Peoples Day, a day to recognize and celebrate the culture and contributions of First Nation, Métis, and Inuit peoples in Canada. And it's celebrated on June the 21st, as it is the summer solstice, which holds a significant cultural and spiritual importance for many First Nations and Indigenous people as a time of renewal, connection, and celebration. I think it's really an opportunity for settler people to take time to learn more about Indigenous culture. And so I hope that folks will do that as we approach this Saturday.
Councillor Hudson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of things I wanted to mention. I just wanted to give a big shout out to the Lions Club for the fishing derby that they put on out at Ground Effects last Saturday. I've never been to a fishing derby, but it was multi-generational, little people right up to grandpas, and they cleaned the fish and everything. So that was fabulous to see that. And also a shout out to the Wowza group for putting on the Wellness Day out at the airport on Saturday. Fabulous attendance, 40 ladies all dressed in their gear and lots of things to learn. We had an opportunity to pick different modalities. So they the breakfast was excellent, just saying. Shout out to Landing Gear for a very nice buffet breakfast. but they incorporated the yoga barn as well. So they had yoga, they had sound bath demonstrations, and they also did Ayurveda surveys as well, which I knew nothing about, and so a little more knowledgeable about that. It was a great day put on by Brockton, and they had all sorts of different goodies in the bag from the different businesses in Brockton as well.
Councillor Hawking.
Another item with regard to the Saugeen Municipal Airport, since we're not going to have council until July, I'd like to inform the public, especially parents, that Kids Fly In is on June the 28th. This is an annual event where pilots give of their time and their plane and buy their own fuel, may I add, so that kids can go up for a little 15, 20-minute plane ride. So last year, I think there was about 110. So they're hoping for good weather and another good turnout. So parents, write that date down, June the 28th, 9 a.m. at the Saugeen Municipal Airport, the place that's happening. Thank you.
All right, I don't see any other hands. Sherry, anything to highlight?
So I have three things actually. July 1st, it's been mentioned a couple times about Splash Pad grand opening, but that really is a great day here in Hanover to demonstrate our Canadian pride, and it will be in Hanover Park, which is a change from our downtown, to tie in with the Splash Pad, the Canadian Tire Splash Pad grand opening. So look forward to seeing our residents on July 1st with their red and white. Also on June 28th, we're having our volunteer appreciation event in conjunction with Music in the Square. So encourage all our volunteers to come to the square and wear their apparel, their hat, their t-shirts, and let's fill the square with all these great volunteers that we've heard about tonight, and that you can learn more about opportunities at the volunteer fair. And council will look forward to sharing some popcorn and cheer with you during that event. If it happens to rain on that day, we are going to have a rain location of a P&H Center. So that event will go rain or shine, so to speak. And lastly, I just want to note, and it's, technology is really great because I got a text message from April, who's listening to the meeting before she comes into our next part of the meeting. And it was in relation to our sign bylaw a discussion. And she said, we need to make note of our new event signs at our entrances. So we have 4 special event signs at all of our entrances. And so that's a really great opportunity for organizations to publicize their events. And you can contact the town office to find out how and what that involves. But right now, I think there's disc golf, the market, I'm trying to think there's 4 on there right now, but I know disc golf and market are 2 for sure. Music in the Square, and I can't remember the 4th one off the top of my head. So any groups out there that are having events, that's a great opportunity to share their event information. That's it. Thank you.
Probably going to text you.
She might.
Okay, all right. So item 15, planning and other meetings. All of our committees are listed. The dates are on this agenda and the website, the committee meetings. Item 16, dates to remember and announcements. The municipal office will be closed on Tuesday, July the 1st. We'll all be down at the Hanover Town Park for the big celebration, the birthday and the Splash Pad official opening. The next regular council meeting is Monday, July the 14th. On that same day, we have an audit committee meeting at 3 o'clock, just before that meeting. The volunteer fair, which is tomorrow, Tuesday, June 17th, runs from 4 till 7 at the P&H Center. And the volunteer appreciation day, as Sherry just mentioned, is Saturday, June the 28th from 11 till 1 at Hanover Heritage Square. At this time, I'll ask, are there any notices of motion? Seeing none, we do. Oh, Council. Oh.
I just want to inform the public that the Saugeen Municipal Airport Commission meeting scheduled for Wednesday, June the 18th has been canceled. Thank you.
Okay, very good. All right, so we do have a closed meeting. So I should have a drink of water for this. It's recommended that the council of the town of Hanover meet in closed session in order to address a matter pertaining to a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, and a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board, which, if disclosed, could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organization pertaining to a possible development. Can I have a mover and seconder to go into closed? Councillor Hawking and Councillor Sacco, all in favor? That's carried. Did you want a 5-minute break or just go into closed? Just go into closed. We'll wait for Tanya to give us the okay.